Hey everybody, welcome to another episode here on the Owwll podcast. I'm joined by my co-host, Santra. This is the podcast we get to really interview some people that are making impact in this world. They fly in all across the United States to come down here. The guest today drove 4 hours, because she is dedicated to her business and making an impact in this world. So this is your first time tuning in. We now go live on LinkedIn, Jason R. Hill, as well as at Owwll Lab on all our socials, right? All these platforms nowadays let you go live pretty much everywhere, which is pretty darn cool, including Instagram. So definitely check us out. And of course, if you want to speak with our guest Loni today, just make yourself available on the Owwll app. We're going to make calls during the show. We're one of the few podcasts that does that week in and week out. And you get the opportunity to join us on this podcast that we're doing live. So, Ellie, before we kick things off, what's happening in your neck of the woods?
Well, I've been doing the 30 hard
Woo!
with you. So
Yeah. How do you
we
feel?
didn't
How do you
mention
feel?
this.
For our guests that are listening, they don't know always what 30 hard really is. So
Yeah.
tell them what it is.
So you guys might have heard of the 75 hard. It's basically a really intense fitness challenge. We did it last year with our Owwll community, and we decided this year to just bring it down a notch. We didn't have a lot of people that completed it last year, so we wanted to make it a little more modified, a little more balanced, doable. So this month, we started April 1st. Jason and I, and we have
About 30.
30 people,
approximately 30
from our Owwll community who are all doing it with us. So basically, it's one 45-minute workout every single day, at least. We have to do 50 push-ups or sit-ups every day. Drink a gallon of water a day. And then the typical thing is that you read 10 pages of a book a day, but instead we catered it towards Owwll. So you have to call one new person every day on Owwll and speak to them for 10 minutes because our calls are in 10-minute increments. That's where they start. If you want to continue the call, you can add more time. So trying to think if I'm missing anything.
And bottom line, because relationships matter, right?
Yeah.
When we look at running a business, the impact of, these type of relationships that you're going to connect with through Owwll, one day are going to blossom, right? I know they've blossomed for you. This morning I jumped in my car and on the way to work, I spoke to 2 different people on the platform and I could already tell opportunities are going to come from these conversations.
Totally. And
So
it's
about this habit we're building, mentally,
Yeah.
fitness, working out,
even just
calling people.
waking up, I usually scroll on my phone and just get in an Instagram hole. And this morning, instead of scrolling, I was like, oh, I'm going to call someone on Owwll. And then I wasn't just sitting, mindlessly scrolling through content that's not helpful. I actually had a meaningful conversation and got business advice first thing in the morning. And then I was like, okay, I can put my phone down and get ready. So it's just a good way to start out the day.
Get you out of bed.
Yeah, just to talk to someone new. And so yeah, I'm excited to see what new opportunities, new people we all meet.
You never know, because honestly, I've had the importance of networking so important, because you don't know if that conversation is going to take you somewhere else later that year or in 5 years, but you're always surprised by, okay, what came of this? And
yes.
And yeah, you never know. So definitely do it.
Yeah, totally. So yeah, that's been good. I feel like we've had more energy. This is only my second bottle of water today, but Jason's already had 5, and he's
I
super
may have
proud
to
of
run
himself.
out to the bathroom right in between this
he's had
episode.
5 bottles of water already.
I get them down. The trick is just don't go for the cold ones. Go for the warm ones. And right in the morning, when you're headed on your commute to work, drink a bottle of water. Right then, drink your coffee. Then right after the coffee, drink another bottle. So before 9 o'clock, I'm 2 bottles in, and that's really the trick to really stay hydrated. And then it really helps with mindset. Then when you're in that work mode, you have more clarity throughout the day, right? Versus grabbing a snack bar that's junk food, and it just puts you in a bad environment. And something that we're doing really unique this month is every week we're having different fitness type influencers joining us on Zoom. So this past week we had a TikTok influencer, 1.4 million followers, join us, and she gave nutrition tips, fitness tips. And yesterday we had someone that won a bodybuilding competition, and he joined us with 15 different folks from the Owl community sharing tips as well. So it's just such an opportunity, to not always go after the metrics, but jump onto a Zoom meeting that we're doing absolutely for free, and then getting to actually speak to these influencers.
Mhm.
They're making themselves available for one-on-one conversations, on the Owl app for usually $1 or $10 because they're being nice. And if you're listening out there, I would just highly recommend, taking advantage of all these things that we have going on in April. We're trying to, do some unique things with the community as a whole. And we have a big grand finale that's going to happen at the end of April, but we'll keep that a secret for the time being.
Ooh.
Let's get into our guest today.
Yes,
Ellie.
yes.
Ellie,
Let's do it.
who is speaking? Who's in the room right now?
Yes. So we have Loni Lebanoff, and she created Cognitutor. I'm going to let her explain it because she is the founder and she knows it best. So why don't
Yeah.
you tell us a little bit about your company?
Yeah. So I started Cognitutor back in 2015.
Okay.
Our main mission is to help kids learn to learn. And so what does that mean? Helping them become independent learners. A lot of the students that we work with are foster youth or special needs, and those kids are the most underserved. And it's like once they get to 18, what happens, right? You want them to have the life skills, the critical thinking, problem solving, so that they can make their way into college or start a business or in their career successfully on their own. And so that's our main mission. We're in 21 states. We're actually going global this year.
Wow. So many questions.
I know.
Where
I'm
do I
like,
start?
my mind
I
is
just thought of like
spinning right
50
now.
questions. Okay. Well, I guess the first thing, of course, is like what inspired you to start this
Mhm.
company? Did you like know someone in foster care, special needs? Did you just see that there was a gap and you needed to fill it? Like what was
Yeah.
the inspiration behind it?
So I had a random student, right? This was not planned at all. I had a random student. Her name was Sarah.
So
And
are you a
so-
teacher? I'm just
No.
Okay.
I had done 3 years of neuroscience research, specifically in learning and memory.
Okay.
And so I do have like a bit of a background in it.
Okay.
But I had a student who was failing the FCAT. It's one of our standardized tests from 3rd grade until 10th grade. And so every single year they're pushing her forward and she's just learning, oh, wow, I can't do this.
Mhm.
Right. So I meet her in 10th grade. We meet just 6 times. Right.
Okay.
7th time, she comes back and tells me that she got almost a perfect score on
Mm.
that test. And it's like, how did that happen? Her school calls me and they literally ask me, how did this happen?
Yeah.
And what I worked on with her during those just 6 hours was this is what you need in order to do well in life. The life skills, the reading comprehension, like what I mentioned, I didn't even know she was going to take that test. She was able to take those skills, apply it to that test, and be able to do well with that test. And then she went to college, and then she never needed to work with me again, actually. And so that's kind of just an example of if we fix the root cause, like what is the actual problem, right? Then you fixed it. It's not just putting a Band-Aid on a wound and thinking, oh, my disease is fixed,
Yeah. I mean, I see that like going to private school. I
Mhm.
remember like a lot of the kids with like more like special needs or dyslexia, whatever it is, would have like a special like one-on-one teacher. But
Mhm.
the problem is like it was just like babysitting basically. And they would just
Right.
like pass them and
Mhm.
they didn't actually learn any skills. And it's just like so sad to see like so many students just being left behind. And because you're paying for the private school, they're like, well, the parents are paying. So like we just have to pass them, even if they're not like learning
Right.
the right material.
That
So
reminds me too. So like what you're saying, it makes me really think of one of our students, Darius. So in North Florida, Darius came to us. He was a foster youth. He had some different learning disabilities he had been diagnosed with. And literally his parent came to me and said, hey, his teachers have given up on him. He was 2 grade levels behind and he's in elementary school. Just imagine like what a difference. He's just going to keep falling more and more behind. He met with his tutor for 6 months. And within those 6 months, he improved those 2 grade levels. And it's like he obviously had this potential, right? It's a matter of having someone consistent who shows that they care and then is focusing on the right skills.
Can you explain how? Like, what is the
Yeah.
tutor doing during that process? I'd like to dive a little deeper, of course.
Yeah, let's do it. So we built a curriculum called the Learn to Learn curriculum. So what I did as soon as I saw this, right? So you asked, how did this business start?
Yeah.
It was really just, I saw at that point with a school calling me saying like, how did you do this?
Yeah.
It made me really see, okay, I would have thought of anyone, a school would know how to
Yeah.
get results, right?
Yeah.
And so that's when I really felt an obligation to go out and fix this and help the kids, you know. And so it completely changes the trajectory of their lives. And so it changes their lives, but it also changes all of the other lives that they are going to affect later on. And so what we do in that curriculum is we focus on, like I mentioned, the critical thinking, problem solving, reading comprehension. We make sure you have a consistent tutor that shows that they care about you first. Imagine you're a student, right? Do you care about school?
Yeah. No.
I never did.
Yeah. No.
Most entrepreneurs don't, right?
Right.
At times you're just like, oh, it's just frustrating. And you're just like, you just can't wait to get done with it so you could play video games, right? Or watch
Exactly.
television.
Like it's
I was
not
just
fun.
talking to my friend about this, how I was like a senior in high school, I remember, and I remember like hated like math and science. And I remember telling my teacher, like, I never have to take a science class again. Like, this is the best day of my life. And then like I realized that my college was like, you had to take gen eds. Like, I don't know why I thought, I was like, oh, in college you can just pick whatever fun courses you want. And I just like didn't know that gen eds were a thing. And then I was like, are you serious? Like I have to take these boring classes again.
Yeah. So it's
yeah.
like a way of thinking that we really want to instill in the kids. So the very first thing, because nobody is actually interested in this, because why? Like it doesn't seem relevant to them in their life. How is this going to help them? So the very first thing we do is the tutors come in and they show that they actually care about the student. And a lot of times with kids who have had trauma, that's the biggest thing, because they're used to people leaving them in their lives. And so if you show up consistently and you show that you care and you care about what their goals are in life, and hey, I'm here to help you get there, then all of a sudden it's like night and day. It's like, oh, well,
Can you give examples of how they
interested.
show that? Because that's a hard thing to, as you're growing a business, to like have tutors come in and be like, you have to care, right? Like it's not something that can be faked and read in a manual. You have to generally, show up, and you could have a bad day and you have to still put on a smile and like, how's your day going? You're with a child, right? And you have to be there for them. So give examples of how they really do that.
Yeah. So something that we absolutely emphasize in our company is customer service, right? We're here for the kids. That's literally the entire thing, right? And so we instill that in our team. And through that, I think that it trickles down all the way to our 900 tutors across the US, right? And so with them, they get some amount of trauma-informed training during onboarding. We also talk to them during the interview process, and we kind of see, does this person actually care about kids? Right? You can't
catch some
fake
red
it
flags.
if you
catch
don't.
them.
So we do that, and then we kind of in the program, we have it set up where like the very first lesson that they go through is actually asking those questions of like, what do you care about? What do you want to do with your life? And then it's almost a roadmap of, okay, how can we get there? And where do we start? And how does this schooling connect to that? And so that's one of the ways. We also check in with the guardians and parents right afterwards. So after that first session, we check in, and like the parents know, right? And they've heard things from their students. And so we hear things, we also see it, we check and read every single report after each session. And so there are a lot of things in place for us to see, is this tutor really there for the student?
I feel like the medical industry needs this service that you're providing, right? I'm thinking about like my doctor. I'm like, this is what it should be like when you go to a doctor's office. Not all about the bills, sit in the waiting room and like no one cares about you. It's like, you're in and out, these type of facilities. And I've been to a lot of facilities in the last 12 months, just going through medical situations myself that I've been
Oh,
publicly
wow.
open about.
Mhm.
And it's horrible, right?
Mhm.
And you just want people to care,
Yeah.
right? And I'm in the financial service business besides for Owwll as well.
Mhm.
And what you're speaking about reminds me a lot of that. It's
Mm.
like we ask, what are your goals in the future? Right. And really, making sure that we're building something that's proper for them, because every individual is a little different,
Yes.
and if the children's goals are to be a musician like Ellie, right, and that's their focus, and they don't care about math, right, and it's just like it doesn't grab their attention. Like, yes, there are certain things important about math because finances are important, but you have to really like just point, folks in the right direction, right, and be there for them and care. So I completely understand where you're coming from.
Yeah. Yeah. As soon as they see that, then they realize, oh, okay, this is towards my goals. Let me
Yep.
actually get the help. And you see the difference in class too.
Yeah.
They go from the student that's in the back, that's not paying attention, all of a sudden to the front, and you can't get them to shut up anymore. Like they want to be engaged. They want to learn because they see they can do it and they have confidence. And by the way, I am sorry to hear about your medical
Thank you.
things. Yeah.
See, that's
That is
example showing caring, right?
Yeah.
yeah, it's not fun. I also have a lot of like medical things, so
We all do. We all
Yeah.
get older, and what I've learned, just being again financial services, I hear all those questions when medical situations come up. It's like everyone's going to go through something. Look at the data, look at the stats, right? So in my case, it was testicular cancer. Oop, got a call coming in because we're live on the Owl Show. We take calls, but that one's not the call we want. So in general, like when you get the word, cancer told to you, it's like, what? I'm 40 years old, right? That's such a scary, verb, of course. And then all of a sudden, like then the reality of like the future checkups and everything else, which is actually why we did the 75-day heart challenge last year, was because I was like, okay, I personally have to be in better shape. Let's do this with the community. And then others obviously, felt that as well. And now we're just going to keep it going every year. Right. Every year we'll do different types of challenges. I don't want to do the 75-day hard one again, though. That's a little too intense to be blunt with you. That's a once in a lifetime probably type of challenge you'll do and push yourself to. But let's dive a little deeper into, how you really got from 0 employees to the amount that you have today and the amount of tutors you have today. Because usually, a lot of people out there want to achieve the results that they see you've had, right? And it's very difficult.
Yes.
Right. Really go from 0 to 5 employees or 0 to 5 tutors, where people really, connect to that mission. So tell us, what year was that when you started the business, and tell us about that first year getting going.
Yeah. So 2015 is when we started, right? And so that first year, like I didn't really have a background in education, really have a background in business.
Yeah.
And so it was kind of just like, what am I doing? Right. So, like in the first month, I made the LLC, I made the website, and I was just like, let's just go for it. But I didn't know what it would really look like. Right. So I was still trying to figure out what does the market want. And so I think the first year, or at least the beginning, is you figuring out, okay, what do I want to do to actually provide a solution to something? And so that was my first year. And I kind of just, I was contacted by a foster youth organization from that website.
Were you working on the side, or I should phrase it, were you working full time and doing this on the side that first year in 2015? Because I know a lot of entrepreneurs kind of say, I can't go all in on this project just yet. I have to really get off the ground and get some revenue coming through the doors. Which was it on your end?
Yeah. So for me, I had really only had one major job between college and starting my business. It was 9 months of like the most stress I had ever been in. I was in middle management, and going straight from college to middle management in hospitality was very difficult in a rural area. So like literally some of my workers had been to jail and stabbed people. So that's who I was working with. And I'm like, okay, can you scrub that toilet better, please? So that was my only experience.
Yeah.
So I had actually just left that job and was trying to figure out, what am I doing with my life when it happened? And so like, I firmly believe that opportunity kind of just like it almost fell in my lap, and I was like, this is something I need to do, and it's something that you have to be consistent about and work really hard with, but it's being able to recognize that, right? So I did go all in completely on it. Yeah, I didn't make money. I don't think I paid myself for a couple of years, probably. So, but I was, very grateful for the opportunity where I was able to go all in. It is hard when you have a job and then you're doing this on the side, right? And so my first year was me just going all in. I worked 16-hour days, like 7 days a week. So I was always working. I sacrificed sleep. I would work until 7 a.m. sometimes just because it's like no one's calling me. I could get the most work
Quiet
done
in the
now.
morning. I agree. But you bring up an important point is you went all in early. Often people say tomorrow I'll do it, right? When I get to 30, when I get to 35, when I get to 40, right? And really life's going to throw you more curveballs.
Mhm.
The
It doesn't stop.
older you get, and usually you have more responsibility
Mhm.
the older you get. Like myself, I have 2 children. It's actually a lot riskier for me to create the Owwll app right now in my life versus if I did it when I was in my 20s.
Right.
Now, in that situation, I probably would have ran out of money. But point being is like you're in your 20s, graduating college, most folks go all in then,
Mhm.
because if you fail, there's not much to lose. You don't
Mhm.
have many people depending on you.
Yeah.
And you did that, and then it was a success. You don't have to turn around and go back to getting a 9 to 5, of course,
Right.
which is quite important. Did you have to raise capital
No.
throughout the process, and are you raising capital today or no?
I'm not raising capital, no. So everything I've done up until this point has been bootstrapped. Everything I've done has been put back into the business. Like I mentioned, I didn't pay myself for years.
Yeah.
And so it was just in that first year when the foster youth organization reached out to us, they had found us on that website.
Yep.
And like what you were saying before is like the little things, with even the networking, it's those little things that you don't realize that you do that make a huge impact later on. And so I literally get a whole foster youth organization that's like, oh my gosh, I love what you do. And at that point, it was just like, I need to find tutors. I need to build systems. And so I would say one of my superpowers is recognizing patterns and building systems. And so for entrepreneurs, I would say really figure out what is the thing that you're good at and what do you actually like doing? And then really focus on that. You're going to have to do everything at the beginning, but you can build it to where eventually you're not doing the things you hate all day, every day.
That's awesome.
I'm trying to
I was like,
give someone a heads up to go live on Owwll because I want them to be one of our callers later in the episode. I'll share later if he comes live. But she's looking at me like, who you calling? Who you calling? Now we have a bunch of people that are in your space in the Owwll community. And of course, when I see that, there's a connection that could be made, I'm like, let's get them on Owwll and then patch them into the Owwll podcast during an episode, of course.
Perfect.
So
I would love to talk to them.
I'm gonna text that individual, but I want to spill the beans. I want it to come naturally through the show if they make themselves available, because there are a lot of busy professionals out there.
Yeah.
Sometimes they obviously are in another meeting and I have no idea. That's the benefit out there available. Then you can chat with them, of course, one-on-one.
So I'm curious, just in terms of pricing and payment and all that. So where do most of your funds come from? Is it like, obviously if you have like foster students, like is it the organization? Like if you're just a parent that's independently wants to get their kid tutoring, like how does all that pricing work?
Yeah. So we strive to be affordable, right? Like we've always been low. I don't think I even raised our prices for the first 7 years that we worked. And we were already low when we started. And so I tried making it as affordable as I could. Honestly, it was like a couple of cents or maybe dollars per hour when I first started. And I was like, okay, this needs to be sustainable for us to be able to get the help to the kids. And so we work with businesses. We also work with individual students. And so we will have parents go on our website and reach out and get a tutor that way. We also partner with nonprofits and state organizations, schools, school districts, scholarships. And so a lot of them already have those students that need the services. And so we partner with them. And then when they have a student that comes in, then they send them our way and they know this kid is going to get good services, good quality services.
Nice.
And on your end, of course, if you're in 21 states and going international, do you guys have a hub locally in Florida where there's X amount of employees, for example, or is everyone remote?
Everybody is remote. So when we started in 2015, that was a little bit newer, right? It was kind of like people would get mad at me when I texted them. They're like, "This is a business. You're not professional at all." And I'm like,
Yeah.
"Sorry. I just thought you would check this message faster than an email." So everyone on our team is remote. We don't have anywhere in person just because a location in person. We do go in person. We also
course.
go online in schools, anywhere where the student
Sure.
is, like
I was going to ask,
shelters.
are they, so these are in-person sessions, or do you do Zoom sessions as well? Like I
Mhm.
know that became popular during COVID and
Yeah.
stuff. So
Yeah. We're honestly anywhere the student is. So
Okay.
like we'll go to shelters, we'll go to group homes
Mhm.
for the kids, we'll go to after school care.
Yeah.
And so we go to them. But I'm trying to remember, what was your original question?
Just home office for your company.
Oh, yeah.
Like
No.
lots of times companies like yours, you have so many remote tutors, right?
Mhm.
Because a lot of the tutors are, I'm assuming, part-time,
Mhm.
right? 1099 independent contractors. But then gets a point in business, you're like, I need a head of marketing and I want that person right by my side in a
Mhm.
local office where I can knock on their door,
Mhm.
right? And then it turns over to like, okay, that's the marketing individual, but then there's other gurus part of the business, like the back end folks,
Yeah.
right?
This is
So
so interesting that
yeah.
you mentioned this actually. So we never had an in-person like location
Yep.
because we wanted to keep the overhead low again so we could make it affordable to students.
Mhm.
And so something that you mentioned just now is having your team also be remote
Yeah.
can be very difficult. And that's something that people have dealt with, because of COVID.
Sure.
Making that transition was very difficult. For us, we were always remote. And so when others are making that transition, what I've found is if you have a team that literally cares about the team, you have an amazing culture, and they care about the mission, then you don't have to babysit somebody. You don't have to have them right there next to you in office. And then there are also other things that you can do to make sure that, they are working. What's very important to me is KPIs. So like I love data, right? What I want to see is results for these kids. I don't want to see, oh, we're trying hard and they're not getting anywhere.
Yeah.
Right. And so I have those KPIs for my team too. They have to be able to show that what they're doing is meeting the minimum requirement. And we fire based on our values and based on those numbers because
I always say
Data
numbers
doesn't
never
lie.
Yeah.
numbers never lie.
Exactly.
Right? Like, you could BS all you want, but it's like here's the amount of leads you were supposed to call. Like, why didn't they close? It's like you obviously must not have called them enough or called them at all.
Mhm.
Right. So especially sales professionals, like if you have a good tracking system with a CRM, right, you could track it all. I mean, I've used CRMs that are down to like how many minutes you've talked to somebody,
Yep.
how many outbound calls, right? And you could really see even the distance between calls. You're like, okay, you made a call at 1 o'clock, then 1:12, but you didn't speak to the individual. Because a lot of these systems now record calls. So I'm like, what did you do in 12 minutes? Right. And sometimes you even leave auto voicemails, right? And that goes deeper into all different systems today, which is hard to get to, right? Because it's really hard to do a remote business,
Yeah.
especially, when you start non-remote and then you turn remote, then all of a sudden you realize, oh my God, I have so many holes because you feel like, okay, is that individual working the entire day? But it doesn't
Yeah.
matter if the data supports it, because what do you care if they're going a little slower than the next person over if their data shows they're a great employee, right? So I love systems built like that, but I also do like that in-person experience at times, right? Because you get such good ideas, right?
Yes.
Ideas are generated from human connection. So I think sometimes if everyone's remote and then you don't get together, right? You sometimes don't say like, hey, what would be cool? Like this TV, we do something on that side of the TV or that side of the TV during a studio, and just ideas come from bonding, just going to lunch, right? And sometimes it's those experiences that end up really helping a company often just build a unique culture over time. And I'm sure you do events, like it's not all remote. I'm assuming you guys get together. How many employees approximately do you have these days?
We have somewhere between 15 and 20.
Yeah.
So my team is so amazing. it's weird because you would be like, "Oh, she doesn't know how many people are on her
Yeah.
team."
Mhm.
But my team is so amazing that I have been able to pull myself out so much from the day to day because they have it covered,
Yeah.
right? So I honestly don't know how many
Mm.
people, but like I do know that my top leadership, kind of going with what you were saying, my top leadership, I have had days where we just work together.
Yeah.
Like I will go to them wherever
Sure.
they are. And it is those little moments that make and foster that connection, right? And so we do have events. It's at least one time a year where we all get together and we do a fun team building activity, and then we go and eat together. And one of my goals for our team is for us to all get into one house, for like a week or something like that. It'll be all paid for. It'll be somewhere absolutely beautiful, and we will work and we will strategize and we will be able to bond together. So, so we do have some of those things, but also I think it's important with online companies. The communication is super important. So having those regular meetings, right? You always need to have a meeting once a week. I actually yesterday just had our quarterly meeting with our entire team. Oh, yes, we have 16, but we were missing some people. So we might have a little bit over 20 of people on our leadership team, but having that quarterly meeting, and then monthlies where we're going over like how their performance is and how they did on their quarterly review. In our quarterly meeting, we go over, hey guys, this is what we achieved this past quarter, and this is where we're going this next quarter. So last quarter, we were on a TV show, right?
Nice.
That was super exciting for the team. This next quarter, we're going to be building out our sales team. We've grown into 21 states without a sales team.
Wow.
And that's because of quality, services, customer service, right? Those are the biggest things.
So let's dive into that a little deeper, because everyone pretty much struggles with doing exactly what you just said.
Okay.
Right? They solve a problem
Mhm.
and they get some customers or clients, but then all of a sudden they're like, I just can't expand quick enough, right, to
Mhm.
get to my next employee.
Mhm.
No different than the Owwll app, right? Owwll app, the amount of people on it, we want to expand quicker, we want more people to download it, but it's rough out there, right? There's a
Mhm.
gazillion apps, there's a gazillion Instagram accounts, TikTok accounts, and everyone's fighting for attention,
Mhm.
right? And of course, the best referral is word of mouth,
Mhm.
right? So how did you really grow this quickly? Or is it word of mouth? Is it just one child had a good experience and then those parents told other parents, or is it more the facilities, so you're going after like hundreds of students at
Yes.
once?
So
So
we're a
it's like
little different.
like you keep just getting just large, groups at times,
Yeah.
which I'm assuming.
Yeah, so it is what you're saying. So
Okay.
we are much more business to business rather than business to customer or consumer, right?
Sure.
And so what that means is we partnered with that nonprofit organization, and then kind of through them other students started coming to us because they
Sure.
had found out, and then they were parts of those other nonprofits. And so then it was like, oh, we need to get you funding for this tutoring, because 95% of our students get funded tutoring.
Yeah.
So either it's funded or it's very affordable for you.
Okay.
And so they came in. So then we partnered with those other organizations. And so, and then it's like, oh, we heard about this one. So it's like one phone call to the organization. And it's like, hey, this is what we do. And so it's top down, where you reached out to the organization.
Yeah.
Like I said, just one phone call, or like I did do a couple of cold emails. So like not a sales department, but like me personally. Or yes, word of mouth, where you get these students to come in, and then through that we got new partnerships. And so to answer your question about how do you scale,
Yeah.
right? I do think that that's really hard. Like there was a time where I think year 4, we tried scaling. I actually lost a lot of money. Our team was super destroyed. And I was still working 16-hour days,
Yeah.
but everything was breaking. And so when you say scaling is the hardest thing, that is the hardest thing. And so what I did in that time is I really had to see what are the things that are going to move my business forward the most. And I need to just focus on those things. So it all kind of goes back to prioritization. And then sometimes, with your leadership, them seeing the future, seeing and trusting you as the leader, then they will work for the mission and for you at a lower rate, at least at the beginning, because they see the potential. Like with my leadership, they are ride or dies. Like they will go anywhere with us, and it's because they know me. They trust me and I trust them, and we are loyal to each other. They know that I'm going to take them anywhere and we are going global. Like they know that. And so I think that it's finding those people that believe in your mission, and then also you waking up every day and not spending time on the email, or the whatever. Like,
Yeah.
what's going to move the needle forward? I'm going to do that first.
And do the partnerships that you're making, are they themselves getting grants to then fund the students? Like
Yes.
I'm going to use an example, like Place of Hope
Mhm.
is locally in Florida. We launched the Owwll podcast with the director of Place of Hope. And, of course, it sounds like they fit the model you're speaking about. So do they go out and get a donor or a grant, or that that's how I believe this works. And then they fund it and they're like, okay, now we can pay for your services.
Yeah. So
Okay.
I would say that's how most of them happen. Sometimes we partner directly with the state who already has funding for example, their foster youth, right?
Gotcha.
We have some scholarships that already have funding specifically for special needs, right? And so the students who have that scholarship, then we just let the scholarship know. And it's like, they have $10,000 in this scholarship, and now they can't find a provider who will be able to provide those specific services. And so it's like making sure that the scholarship knows and that the people can find us so that they can get those services they desperately need. And so, but we also do work with nonprofits who will go and find grants for it. We also work with schools and school districts who already have something in their budget specifically for the students that they need a little bit extra help with.
Yeah. I love this part of the conversation because so often everyone just goes right to social media. I got to grow an audience. I got to go direct to consumer. But you didn't go caring about that as much. Like I've been on your social media, and when you really, unravel a lot of business owners, you'll see that a lot of successful ones go B2B, right? Because you're not worried about one customer at a time.
No.
And us on Owwll, you're going to see that in the next 6 months. We're going to do some major partnerships. One I can speak about is South Florida Tech Hub, right? We're going to launch Tech Tuesdays with them, and all their members will get it to be put at the top of the Owwll app, right? So you want to talk about tech, go into Owwll, get to talk to their CEO as an example. And that's a way where the Owwll app maybe overnight can double in size with the amount of experts and quality as well, right? And people who want to connect and want to share information. So I see exactly what you're doing, and I advise everyone out there, it's like place close attention to those folks on the 30 under 30 list, the Forbes list, or all these Inc. 5000 lists, and just go to their Instagram accounts, and you'll see so often they don't have large followings, right? So they're doing exactly what you're speaking about.
Yeah.
I think Ellie had a question for you.
I was just thinking about, so we have like mentorship Mondays on our app where a lot of high-end expert, like we've had like the CEO of Celsius on there, like they'll lower their price to $1 so that they'll just give their time, they'll give mentorship to people. So I was just kind of curious. I know that you said like a lot of this you just did yourself, you put the time in, you were researching, you weren't sleeping, which is really impressive. But did you have like any, like in terms of just knowing what to do and not, you said not really having an education or business background, did you have like specific mentors that you turned to, or how did you go about finding those people if you did have
That's
them?
a really good question. So I did it the absolute hardest way and slowest way that you could have, because I was just head down, work, I tried finding advisors. It is very difficult. There are some advisory organizations I would not suggest. And it's a little bit sad because I know a lot of entrepreneurs are going there and they're just hearing from these advisors that are apparently supposed to know what they're talking about, that here, fill out this financial report and this business plan. And it's like, this is not going to move your business forward. Like if I were to say, focus on the most important thing, it is not this financial Excel sheet right now. I'm sorry. And so I did try to find advisors unsuccessfully until I found one actually, and I really found that I liked him because he understood prioritization. He was successful himself, and he understood the bigger picture. He didn't make me sit down and do, this sheet that's not going to move it forward.
Yeah,
And so
yeah.
I was lucky to have found one of my mentors, and he has started multiple businesses, and
Nice.
and then he gave me the best compliment I think that I have ever gotten. When he went from being my mentor to being my business partner on another business, I was like, so I highly suggest that is the best way to do it. So I'm glad that
Yeah.
you brought it up, because that's the best and fastest way for you to learn and miss all of those mistakes
Yeah.
that I made doing trial and error.
And how did you find him eventually through one of those organizations, or how?
I looked online. I think it was called Micro Mentor or
Okay,
something like
okay.
that. Yeah. So I don't know if it's a good organization, so I'm not like
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
endorsing it or anything.
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
just that was
You just
the one
eventually found
place.
your person. Yeah.
One
Yeah.
person in one place.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So
Gotcha.
now I do have a business consultant. I do have like a therapist, like a life coach, and other advisors too, which I suggest all of those things
Yeah.
because as a business owner, you get so burnt
Burnout.
out
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and you forget about yourself. Like you're
Mhm.
giving everything to like this baby that needs all of your time and energy, and it's like terrible.
Yeah.
And so remembering yourself, like I would highly suggest that. This year was like the year where my body completely broke, like what we were mentioning before, and it
course.
was like, okay, I need to like stop and like have a little bit more work-life balance. I've always preached it for my team and then never did it for myself.
Yeah.
So
Okay, it's that time of the show. We're going to look at the Owwll app and call some folks. So if you're out there listening, go live, make yourself available, and you'll get the opportunity to be on the show. So this person in particular is Daniel Hall. He's available.
Daniel.
He's taken 407 calls on the Owwll app. He was actually Owwll's first brand ambassador. And if you could see at the bottom why I want to speak to him is you could see right here some of the information that he has 6 adopted children.
Oh, yeah.
And he's helped over 400 inbound foster parents, throughout the U.S. And he won Foster Parent of
That's
the Year in 2011.
amazing.
So he's $10 for 10 minutes because his full-time job, not only being a parent to 6 children, he's really into tech. So you guys are going to get along quite well. And getting to chat with him for $10 a discount when you know his true income behind the scenes. So
Yeah,
he does
he's
this.
amazing.
He loves sharing knowledge. And there he is. He's coming on. Here we go. Hey, good afternoon, Daniel. How are you doing today?
All right. I am just sitting here waiting for you to call.
Well, welcome to the Owwll podcast. Can you tell our audience in approximately 30 seconds or less a little bit about who you are and what you're all about, Daniel?
Sure. I grew up in foster care, and now my wife and I are award-winning parents of 6 remarkable children, all with various needs. And my 45-year tech career pales in comparison to working with our family and everything that they've taught me, including healing from my trauma as a foster child. So in 30 seconds, that's about it.
I probably should give you a minute and tell us about the book that you recently published.
Haven't published the book yet.
It's close.
We're still working on it. It's due out in Q4. And it, because of what I went through growing up as a kid and what our kids are going through, I took a look at all the vanity metrics that drives social media today, and I just can't see our kids surviving in the world with all these vanity metrics. So the book that I'm working on is the top 100 list of lies on social media. So it basically breaks down how a lot of the influencers have built their thrones, and
Mm.
the metrics that they're throwing out
Mhm.
are just fake. And
Yeah.
yeah, it all winds back to, how I see our kids growing up with all their, I mean, one of our kids is autistic at level 2 autistic, and he's probably one of my biggest heroes. I've learned so much from him. But in this vanity driven world, it's hard for me after my wife and I, our book of our life is said and done. It's hard for me to see what his life is going to be in the future
Right.
when a number is just put to him.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah. I absolutely love what you do, Daniel. Thank you so much for getting on.
So this part of the show is cool, Lonnie. You get to
Oh.
ask Daniel a question. You
Ooh.
kind of heard his background, and we're going to switch it up where you get to talk a little bit to him, and then we're going to have
Okay.
Daniel ask you a question back. Okay.
Okay. Ooh, just one question? You said so many things. I absolutely love what your book is saying. I just want to say really fast that there are a lot of lies on social media. Like, it looks like you get somewhere through something and it's just like all glamorous. And it's like, how did you end up being so successful and not doing anything but like being in this beautiful house all day, wearing a
Yeah,
lot of
right?
makeup and nice clothes? Like, how did that
And then
happen?
you realize, oh wait, they're not actually they don't
Yeah.
actually have money. Those are just they paid for those followers.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Or it's when
So
you find out
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
paid for the 1 million followers that you think they got naturally. Yes.
Yeah.
So, Daniel, what do you see as far as like what do you think is going to happen with our kids with social media? What do you envision with that? And can you give us like just one or two safeguards, I guess, that can prevent a little bit of that for our kids?
What I see is hopefully the world making humanity. My goal is to help put the human back in humanity.
Mhm.
And, having educating and getting, people, our current generations, Gen Z, Gen X, baby boomers, to be able to see social media through a very different lens,
Mm.
and then helping our future generations learn from that. Right now, so many of our Gen Zers and Gen Xers, even Gen Xers, grew up in a vanity-driven world, and it. I would hope to see the future looking more like us building relationships the old school way.
Mhm.
You know,
Who
the old
who
school
didn't?
way of building relationships is the new cool school. Face to face or on a Zoom call. Not these. There's just not the vanity driven stuff. Building relationships the real way, and I
Mhm.
hope that what I'm doing will help our future generations to be able to get to that point. It'll take years to fix what's broken today with that, and that so impacts what you're doing, Lonnie, what I'm doing, because it's all about our kids.
Mhm.
And those are your kids, whether you choose to believe it or not. All those kids that you help, those are your kids. You think about them, you hear about their stories, it impacts your life.
It truly does. Yeah. I think that social media, not everything, like there are good things about social media. I love that, people like you, Daniel, are seeing the future impact on it. And you're just recognizing, okay, can we just the negative aspects of it, can we kind of help with those a little bit sooner rather than later before we see those things? Awesome. So I love that answer. Thank you. Did you have a question for me?
I do. So you're in Florida, correct?
Yes.
Yes. So Florida, you must know what pride training is, right?
Pride training.
That's the training that all foster parents have to go through in order to get approved.
Yes, I do know about the training. I didn't know the name. Yeah.
Yeah, that's all right. So, the question. the
Mhm.
question. Let me think of a question here.
Mhm.
Oh gosh, I don't have one ready, but let me see if I can whip one
That's
off the top of
okay
my
because
head here.
remember, not every we're calling them
Share.
naturally out of the blue on Owl.
Oh, that's all right.
They're not always listening to the entire episode,
Share.
so it completely makes sense. Just to give you a little background, Daniel.
Share.
Oh, he has a question. We'll let him go.
Yes. Share one of your favorite stories. You don't have to name names of, one of the kids that you worked with.
Okay, yeah, like you said that, and you would think that it would be hard, and I would have to, but like immediately, I thought of a girl, right? And so, I always try to continue to tutor a little bit, just because I don't ever want to get so far away from where I started that we're making the company something that doesn't actually help the student in the end, right? And so I was tutoring in one of the schools, and this girl had never talked to any of the teachers or any of the administrators in the school ever. She never engaged in anything. And so we have this program where we're there for only a week, only 15 hours. These are the kids that aren't able to get their diploma in their senior year because they haven't gotten a certain test score, right? And so the school tries all year long. And so we come in just for a week and we work with them and we tell them, this is all you need to get this test score. And within that week, actually, I think it was the second day, she responded to me on something. And I think it's because she could see, I literally care about you. I'm going to cry right now.
Yeah.
But I do care about the kids and the students that we're working with. And I think she
Mhm.
could see that. And the principal actually heard about it and came up to me and personally thanked me because she was
Wow.
like, we have tried to reach this kid for so long.
Yeah.
And so that's my favorite student. I'm going to stop crying now.
Aw.
So, yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
You're
I
making
have
it.
goosebumps.
Me
But
too.
I will tell you that sometimes just helping our children see the forest through the trees is what they need.
Mhm.
And it sounds like you did that. That's awesome.
Yeah. Good question. Thank you.
Yeah.
And more to come, of
You're
course.
welcome.
More impact for everyone here, right?
Yeah.
Through Ellie's music, helping many souls, through Owl,
Yeah.
through the impact that you're making, Daniel, and of course,
Yeah.
I can't wait to see the future of all
And
our
even
brands.
I'm just like, oh, like I wish that like if Owl had existed when you were looking for your mentor,
Yes.
like you
Mhm.
could have gone on like Mentor Monday. Like it's just
Yeah.
there's so much like collaboration and just ways that we're all gonna help the world.
That's seriously so cool that you guys do that because it's hard sometimes to be able to reach someone who has the knowledge and the time,
Mhm.
right?
And to have someone that's like, I'm here waiting for you to call me. Like I want to help you. It's
Bye, Daniel. See you
bye.
later.
Sorry,
Daniel.
time's
So
running out.
good.
Time's running
You.
out.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
And how
So
cool is this for everyone out there listening that we get
Very
to
cool.
leave Daniel a review now and chat. Just say, hey, I had a great conversation.
Love
That's how
it.
the Owl app works.
I would definitely suggest to all of those entrepreneurs out there, like finding a mentor really is so important. So please do utilize services and opportunities like this, where a Mentor Monday, you can reach out to them because it's going to be your consistency that gets you to where you want to be. And you need to not take no as an answer. And so if you see somebody who has the knowledge, they're probably willing to give it to you and to talk to you, but you have to go out there and you have to ask them and you have to show them that you're somebody worth their time, that you are coachable, you want to learn, and you're on the right track for the right reasons.
Yeah.
is it bedtime?
I think it's bedtime.
You're
This is the
You're like,
funnest
what is
part of
going
the
on?
show.
I didn't
We
tell
did
you.
the whole
Sorry.
show to surprise people on this last segment, and we don't
Yeah,
tell
we don't tell
we don't tell
anybody.
guests about it.
Okay.
Put you in the hot seat.
I'm just thinking like,
Well,
What are we
why don't we
gonna do?
start by sharing with Loni the rules?
yes.
What happens on the segment?
Yes. Okay. So basically, every week with our guest, we create a bet where essentially we ask you to do something with our platform, usually
Mhm.
like take a certain number of calls on the platform or, refer people to the platform, whatever it is. And if you complete that task, then you can get something from us. So whether it's getting your own, podcast, access to our studio, and you could like do your own podcast or call-in show, whether it's getting introductions from Jason, because he has a huge network of people that he knows, whatever it is. So basically, our guests will think of something they want from us if they complete the bet. And then if you fail, then we get something from you.
Okay.
So that's basically how it works.
Okay. Perfect.
So I don't know if you have any ideas.
I mean, we are going to launch the ability to have groups on the homepage at the end of this month. That's what we're doing with South Florida Tech Hub. So something we could do, which would be probably be a mutual benefit, but we could of course add a lot of the tutors from your organization up at the top with your company name, right? And then throw them at the top for fun and feature them, and they get a lot of inbound calls. But there's more complexity because you're a business, and tutors are 1099. So maybe that's too complex of one to do on the spot on the air.
Yeah, but I would love to bet like a certain number of people
Yes.
where I would be able to answer their calls. The TV show again like had a lot to do with learning entrepreneurship, and I have lots of experience, and I've talked to with different advisors, so I would love to be able to help others, just also them to be able to make a bigger impact. So I would love
Let's
something
tie
like
it to
that.
Mentorship Monday because you believe in
Okay.
mentors so much. So how about that you have to next Monday, hopefully you have some availability. You have to make yourself available on Owwll for 2 hours and take calls for 2 hours. Whoever calls you.
Okay.
Right. So calls are 10 minutes long. You might chat with someone like Daniel for 30 minutes. Right. But you're going to make yourself available. New Owwls have to charge $1 until they get to 10 calls. So it's not about the money because people are going to get access to you for $1. We're going to post you and say you're our featured expert for Mentorship Monday as well on social media.
Yeah.
We really align it. So you should get call after call. I would probably recommend just limiting the calls to 10 minutes. So that way you get as many calls in a 2-hour period.
Okay.
And of course, if you don't get calls, your phone's on sleep mode. So you're not wasting your time. You go to work while you're waiting for other people to call you.
Okay. Perfect.
Right. So that would be my ask. And that's our part of the bet. So if you accomplish, and you actually do it, we see you live for 2 straight hours on Monday, right? You win.
Okay.
If you don't go available for 2 hours and take calls, so we see all the calls are missed, that does not count, right? Because someone could go live, hit a switch and be like, okay, that was great, you went available, you got 12 missed calls. That actually hurt us, right? We've seen people do that, not in the bet situation, but like they're like, hey, I made myself available. Like, yeah, but you didn't have your phone on, right? The ringer was off, and like, oh yeah, I missed all the calls, and that completely, obviously, not fun for us. So that's what we like. What would you like if you accomplish that? It could be an introduction to a nonprofit in South Florida. I know a lot of them, right? I know Place of Hope, right? I'm not sure if you know folks over there. The Hanley Foundation was recently on the Shrimp Tank podcast that I operate.
Oh, okay.
I'm very well connected to the FAU.
I was thinking maybe something
direction.
with FAU, like with the students, maybe if they're looking to become like tutors. I don't know, something with the classroom.
What are our tutors? We didn't ask that, I don't think.
Yeah,
Maybe I
yeah.
missed that. What are the average age of your tutors?
So our tutors they're typically college age all the way up until
perfect.
we've had like 70-year-olds who, are super energetic, very engaging and fun with our kids. And so we have all ages. So college students could work too. They are like very
You might
close
like
in
an
age.
introduction that I could get you in front of a classroom at FAU to just share a little knowledge for 15 minutes to a group of students. My co-host is the director of the Adams Center for Entrepreneurship, and he runs an FAU entrepreneurship class, and he's always looking for featured entrepreneurs to join him in a classroom setting to kind of share knowledge about certain subjects. So you could kind of do two things at once: share your story, but also then get an opportunity to ask students at the end, like I do, like, hey, does anyone want an internship? Right? There'll be some opportunities. Like, they don't want to be a tutor potentially. They'll reach out to us, of course.
Okay. I think what would make the biggest difference to students and kids would be actually if you did make, like 3 introductions to different nonprofits, just because those are so many students. Sometimes
Mhm.
they don't know how to get good services. We even
Yeah.
had a nonprofit one time
Yeah.
reach out to us. They got started 1 month after we started with them. They completely stopped with all other organizations they were working with and only worked with us because of they saw the difference
Yeah.
with the
Mhm.
tutors, right? So I would love, I can do those 2 hours for
Mhm.
sure. I would love talking with people. And then after that, it would be great to be able to help more students.
We
Awesome.
did have the Ann Stork Center on, which is a quite big one, of course. Are you guys connected to them?
Perfect. No, we aren't.
Okay, so we'll find you some good ones, of course. So you better complete this challenge. I love your
Yeah.
answer,
Let's do
actually,
it.
because it goes right back to like what Owl's all about: relationships,
Mhm.
right, and the power of them. And too often people chase the short term, things like financials, like a quick $100 for an Owl call,
Mhm.
and they don't realize that the bigger impact is the relationship,
Mhm.
right, on your business. And what you just did is you said, no, I don't care about, a studio and doing a quick episode. Like, no, if you could do, an introduction
Mhm.
to an organization that's really difficult to get in touch with, that can make such more impact to the world.
Mhm.
Right. So I like that you went that direction.
It's a win-win for everybody. So.
Okay, Ellie, you got to shake on it. That's the
Wait,
deal.
wait, wait. What do we get if she
Oh, I always
wins?
forget that
Oh,
part.
what would you like?
I always forget that part.
No, I'm like,
See, I did this again. I did that like 3 episodes ago. I'm like, I'm just so excited to make a deal. And I'm like, okay, do that.
Well, it's gonna happen. So.
Yeah.
So if you lose, you got to do something with us.
Mhm.
maybe it's well, you live so far away that I'm like, no. Um maybe it's just like getting your team on Owl, like making sure that
Mhm.
you guys all sign up, and I don't know.
Our missions are very aligned, right?
Yeah.
You're helping other people through knowledge, of course. Students really below age 18 are not going to use Owl due to the
Mm.
money regulations, of course.
Mhm.
It's going to really be above age 18, but a lot of your tutors are above age 18,
Mhm.
and I'm assuming, you know, are going to use Owl regardless once they find out about it. So I would just say spreading the word to some of the tutors to be like, hey, take advantage of Owl.
Mhm.
And maybe it's
Because
like you have to get like 10 Owl signups, like 10 referrals or
10
something if you
referrals,
lose.
Mm.
Yeah.
employees,
Okay.
So it could be
tutors,
anybody really, tutors, employees. Yeah, you just have
Yeah.
to get 10 people to sign up.
and her
Okay.
mentor. There we go.
Oh,
I want
yeah.
her mentor on the app. There we go. Let's just smile.
You're
All
like,
right,
he's
bet.
busy. Bet. Woo!
Bet. There it is.
Woo! Cool.
Okay. Well, Lonnie, thanks for joining us here on the
Thank
Owl
you for
That was
podcast
a great
today.
having me.
episode.
For everybody
Yay.
watching, of course, they could reach out to you directly on the Owl app 101 on Monday. But in the future, what other places can they find you? What are your social media handles? What is your website link?
Yeah, so our website is www.cognitutor.com. So you spell that Cognitutor. You can also find us on Instagram, same thing. You could also find me on Instagram. My handle is Loni, Loni _ pops, POPS.
Nice.
Lonnie
Well,
Pops.
thanks for joining us. For everybody out there, we will be back next week on the Owl podcast. Take care, everybody.